Good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday, April the 15th, tax day. Ted, you are tuned in to the TMI Show, the Ted Manila Information Show, and we bring you way too much information like that. If you didn't know, it's tax day in America, all across this glorious land, Ted. This is the day we all worship at the altar of taxes. I think that's what it is, right?
Well, maybe not those of us who filed already, but yes, it is tax day. Your taxes are due at 12 midnight tonight. They must be postmarked or filed electronically, as more people do these days. Here in New York City, at the main post office, there's this amazing ritual. At the big, giant post office with zip code 10001, the main post office at 8th Avenue and 34th Street, directly across the street from Pennsylvania Station. And they will continue to stamp your, they will postmark your tax return as late as 11:59 p.m. So people line up. The last minute filers, they line up at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And the clerks dutifully wait and process them as quickly as possible. They stay open till 12 midnight. It's the only one in New York City that does that. It's the only time of the year that they do that. But I don't know if this happens anywhere else in the country, but they do it
If
here.
you miss the postmark, should it be like election laws, like with your ballots? Like if you miss it, then you don't get counted. Then you just don't.
I don't think much really happens, to be truthful. My accountant one year messed up and ended up filing my taxes, I think, on the 17th. Complete idiot. And nothing happened, really. I mean, it's like you would, if they cared, the government would get back and they would ding you like the interest charges for those a couple of days. But nothing really happens. It's not like you blew it and now you're fucked. It's not like that.
Oh, I always wondered what happened. I have never missed. I have filed extensions in the past, but since I've been married, my husband is all about, I mean, he's a bean counter for, that's what he does for a living. So he files everything like way early and good, because I'm generally very good at deadlines as a journalist. But when it comes to taxes, like, come on, I just kind of punt and kick the can. I'm like, oh, I forgot this. Oh, I forgot that. And I think that's probably most Americans, because like, who's anxiously awaiting to pay the tax man?
Well, it's psychological, but I think most Americans probably get a refund, right? So it's like if you work a normal 9-to-5 job and you get a W-2, you probably should file early because you're going to get your money back quicker. There's like no reason.
Yeah, but there's people like us, a lot, and especially now in the gig economy where everyone's juggling like 5 different side hustles, and especially people like you and I that have worked in media for so many years. We paste together paychecks from wherever we can, and it's not as easy, it's not as clean cut to do your taxes, including for people like us who work from home. You can deduct X amount of home office space and whatever, and so it's more complicated, I guess, for people that do a lot of side hustles like Ted and I. So I have punted before, and I have been slapped back by Uncle Sam viciously.
Like you had to pay big fines?
Like, not apparently they fined me because they said I miscalculated something. I've been fined in the past, and then I owed. So that not only did they keep some of my tax refund, but then they said I owed on top of that before. But then here's on the flip side, Ted. On the flip side, I accidentally swung the other way and paid too much taxes, both state and federal. And because it was the time that I was like transitioning, not that way, to DC, and I was bi-coastal from LA to DC. And then and also in that one particular tax year, LA, DC, and then over the river into Virginia, because I was still a homeowner in California. So there's all of these different tax boards. California has the franchise tax board, the FTB. They hold you hostage in California, Ted, if you're moving. I don't know if people don't know this. I don't know if every state behaves like this, but California basically holds you freaking hostage, and you have to like notify them that you're moving out of state and you're no longer, you can't be taxed on, other incomes that are still, let's say you have, like open.
No, California is crazy. Like
they don't let you leave. It's Hotel California.
As a cartoonist, when I attend a comic convention like San Diego Comic-Con, and if I sell stuff there, which I do, you're supposed to. Yes. They make you get a tax ID number for the state of California, and you have to file taxes, sales tax, and sales and use taxes, and they track you down. And that is it. It's really incredibly annoying.
It's nuts. They nickel and dime you. And so this one particular year that I had 3 different state taxes, California, DC, even though it's not a state, and Virginia. Mm-hmm. So there was somebody fumbled something, and somewhere along the line, they owed me money. And you know what happens, Ted? They keep punting and punting. And of course, I realized this mistake during COVID when everything was shut down, the IRS.
Well, that's why. I was going to say, I've had that same experience, Manila. And I found that they were under normal circumstances when the entire world isn't locked down. They definitely.
It was that year.
They issue the refund in a pretty reasonable time.
That was that year in 2020, and then they were like, no, that guy has your money, that state has your money, DC has it, no, California has it, no, the state of Virginia has it. So they were punting back and forth. Then the federal, it was just a big convoluted mess. And I think we should actually go into a bit of history at some point to talk about when we started paying taxes in lieu of all these tariff things that are kind of.
I can tell you all about that. I know all about it. It all goes back to Cordell Hull. Cordell Hull, a very important. There was no way to be American in the 19 teens through the 1950s without knowing who Cordell Hull was. He was basically like one of those political people who was always bouncing around everywhere. And he was from Tennessee. He ultimately became Secretary of State under FDR. And he was during World War II. So obviously that was an incredibly important job at that time. It always is. And but he was the father of the modern income tax. There had been income taxes off and on throughout the 19th century, during which the country also collected tariffs. But there'd never been, it was usually during a time of national crisis that the government would impose an income tax, and then it would be repealed later. But Cordell Hull's big reveal, I think it was 1914 or so, where he was like, we can turn the federal government into a rich country, but we need to pass a national income tax. There had been concern that it was anti-constitutional. They got it. Yeah. They got there was an amendment to the Constitution to address that issue. And that's basically whether you like the income tax or not, there's no doubt that this country would never have expanded into the international military and economic colossus that it is today without the modern income tax. So, it's hard to imagine like that tariffs could ever replace that income. You can raise money
Trump's talked about it.
Well, he talks about a lot of things, but he throws things at the wall.
Bloviates.
But he doesn't have a plan. Okay, he doesn't. And so I think it's kind of like, well, we could talk about tariffs another time. We should probably get going.
Libertarians would be on board. Libertarians are on board with that, Ted. I'll just say they and DC says taxation without representation.
I'll tell you one of my main problem with sales and use taxes, which is it's regressive. Like everybody, so let's say you make you make $10 million a year.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're Mark Zuckerberg,
for example. Well, he makes much more than that. But let's just say you make $10 million a year. You probably don't spend $10 million a year. You probably spend, I don't know, $1 million a year, and the rest all goes in the bank, right? So let's just say you tax that $1 million that like that person spends. You're taxing it at the same rate that someone who makes $30,000 a year. Now they spend every dime that they earn. Okay,
of course.
So their effective tax rate of the third person who makes $30,000 is much higher than the person who is, the person by percentage who's making $10 million a year is only paying a tenth as much. So that's what I don't like about it. Rich people should pay more. Like if you go to the ball game, rich people who have the best seats, they have the box seats, they have the view of the great view of first base or home plate. They pay the most. If you are up in the behind the jumbotron, up in the nosebleed seats, you pay the least. That's how society should be. If you get to live in the biggest house and you drive the best car and you have the best access to the president because you're rich, you should pay the highest taxes.
Well, I forget what state in Europe has this ticket, this fine for when you're speeding. It's based on your income, so it's a percentage of your income.
That's right.
I forget what country that is, though.
Yeah, I forget. I know that. I read about that too. Germany. I like that though.
But I thought, that's kind of fair, right? Like if you're driving your jalopy
know all sorts of rich assholes who do not care if they get tickets.
Well, right, because if it's a $90 ticket and you're some rich asshole driving your Ferrari, 1,000 miles an hour, and it's a $90 ticket, you're gonna be like, fuck it, I don't care. I'm gonna keep speeding down the road with my Ferrari.
The only thing that can punish them really is to take away their license.
Right. If you're some Joe Schmo working at the factory driving your jalopy and you're, you get dinged for a ticket, that $90 ticket means a lot to you, so I can see where that's fair. I don't know enough about taxes and stuff like that. I really ought to learn, but our system is so convoluted.
It is. I like the French system. And France is one of many countries where, here, basically, the government knows how much you earned, okay? Especially if you work like a regular 9-to-5 job. They know. So in France, they know. So they send you your tax form, and it's all pre-filled out. And they say, check this over. If you agree, sign and return.
Wow.
And if you don't agree, indicate like you're everything we got wrong and explain why, sign and return.
Justify it, and wow.
And it works. I mean, most French people, they end up, they're like, the government calculation is correct. They check, and that's it.
Wow. Why can't we do that? Anyway,
they could.
Okay, one more
we
thing.
We could totally do that. It's this weird thing, like, where you have to guess, like, did that one freelance gig I have, when
that's what caught me up on that one time.
Did they report it, or sometimes, I just forgot, and then like I forget to report something, and then it's like,
I forgot the sale. I was already living in DC, and I forgot one transaction of one property, one house that I sold in Los Angeles. Just one. And they came after me as if I was like trying to, I was a coyote
it was probably
smuggling
a pretty substantial
in aliens.
amount of money, right? I mean,
it was like a $25,000 commission.
Okay.
So,
I mean, failing to report $25,000 is like,
I forgot one property. I know it's not nothing, but it was one property, and they came after me as if I was like trying to like smuggle fentanyl into the country. I think they would probably be nicer to me if I was smuggling fentanyl into the country.
As long as you're paying taxes.
But it was one transaction on one real estate.
Speaking of which, in tying into our main topic today, the Trump administration is now getting cooperation from the IRS. They are sharing data with ICE and BCE in order to try to track down, use that information to, they wanted illegal immigrants to nevertheless file their taxes, and they told them, don't worry, the IRS will never share your information. That's super confidential with ICE, and now they are.
Now here we are.
The effect will be, of course, that it's going to drive, we should get to it.
Drive further people, more people into
drive them underground, and then we're going to get less money out of them.
Yeah. And also this day in history, worth noting, April 15th, 1912, the Titanic, the largest ocean liner in service at the time, struck an iceberg just 4 days into its maiden voyage from Southampton, England to New York City, Ted. They were heading to you 2 hours and 40 minutes after hitting the iceberg. The luxurious vessel sank to its watery grave in the North Atlantic Ocean. In total, between, and I guess we can talk about smuggling people on board, somewhere between 1,400 and 1,600 passengers perished. The tragic sinking is considered one of the deadliest peacetime maritime disasters in history.
They weren't smuggling people on board. That's not why they're not sure how many people
Leonardo
died.
DiCaprio, he was,
That's true.
He was this little...
He couldn't get up on that door with chubby Kate.
I think the character snuck his way on board the Titanic. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think he was a ticketed passenger. So, he's that bastard trying to come to America. In reality,
that probably couldn't have happened, but okay.
Yeah, I know. But anyway.
It's not the wheel well. It's not the wheel well of a passenger plane where any random African can climb in.
Or the wheels of a, what was it, like a C-31 or what's it called in
from
Afghanistan?
Kabul, the C-130s, yeah.
The 130.
Yeah, it's not an Air Force cargo vessel where hundreds of Afghans can climb onto the bottom.
Horrible. We're horrible people here at the TMI Show.
We try to be.
We try to be. So join us every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, except for when we take a day off like we had yesterday. So we thank you for being here. Make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button wherever you are consuming this show. With that, let's hop into all the headlines. Brr.
The U.S. federal government has frozen $2.2 billion in grants and $60 million in contracts to Harvard. You may have heard of that, Harvard University, after Harvard said that it will refuse to comply with Trump's demands to get rid of DEI programs and to stop student protests. President Alan Garber of Harvard told the campus on Monday the university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. A few hours later, the Education Department's Task Force on Anti-Semitism released a statement announcing the funding freeze. Harvard's statement today reinforces the troubling entitlement mindset that is endemic in our nation's most prestigious universities and colleges, that federal investment does not come with the responsibility to uphold civil rights laws, the task force stated. I don't know, it's kind of funny to hear Trump talk about civil rights given how he's running roughshod over the civil rights of deportation victims, and their habeas rights and their right to be represented in a court of law. Anyway, 2 weeks ago, the Education and Health and Human Services departments, along with the General Services Administration, launched a review of about $9 billion in federal funding to Harvard. A few days later, the administration sent Harvard a list of areas of reform that they wanted to see changed if Harvard was going to continue to get money. Those steps included getting rid of DEI, getting rid of face coverings during protests, in other words, to make it easier to dox protesters. And that's the only reason that they're trying to get rid of it. Reforms to admissions and hiring systems that prioritize merit-based criteria over racial or gender preferences. The letter also urges the university to fully cooperate with federal agencies, including Homeland Security, and to pursue structural reforms and leadership changes to ensure long-term compliance. And basically, Harvard to U.S. government, go fuck yourself. I say good for Harvard. I mean, it just shows how low we've sunk that, finally we got to the point where just basically doing a basically right thing to protect your independence when you're spectacularly rich and you don't need the money anyway, that's considered courage. Unfortunately, my alma mater, Columbia University, does not demonstrate the same level of courage. They caved like something that caves easily. but
which school is richer, Ted? I mean, they
Harvard.
have
Harvard is much richer. Harvard is much, much richer. Now, that said, Columbia is very wealthy. I mean, they have between 15 and 18 billion dollars in endowments. So, but Harvard's got a lot more. Harvard's like, basically, they just don't care. They don't need to care.
ID gaff.
They're like, and I think they probably took a look at what's happened at Columbia, and they're like, yeah, that's not good. As you know from the other day when I walked around the campus, it's like Pyongyang over there. I mean, there's not even like the school is completely locked down. You don't even see two students talking to each other. Nobody trusts anybody.
I noticed that behind you. I didn't see two people walking together at all.
No, nobody trusts each other. They have completely destroyed campus life. There's not even any, how every college campus, I don't care where you go, community college, Harvard, it doesn't matter. There's always flyers advertising, various events, right? Like, knitting club, Asian Students Union, concert, film, whatever. Those are all
poetry reading.
Sure. All of that's gone at Columbia. Yeah. Like literally there's no student life. I mean, they were some of the best years of my life attending Columbia. I couldn't in good conscience, given what's going on there now, tell anyone that they should send their kid there. It would be incredibly depressing. I mean, I think you probably I will not be at all surprised if next year they have a spike in suicides.
Oh my God. Well, okay. So for this Harvard thing, I would say, okay, Columbia was kind of the canary in the coal mine for universities the past 2 weeks. As for Harvard, I've stated my beef over the years with them, especially in their whole DEI woke stuff about how they don't accept Asian kids because, they say we lack personality. We're so blah.
You've got no personality.
Blah, blase. And
well, is that
all the good grades?
Well, I guess the question is that if that's true, even should it matter? I mean, I will say a lot of the Asian students were really fucking boring at Columbia.
I know, but it's come out in Discovery. That's why I say this is like a factual
The WASP
thing.
kids are boring too, though.
But there's that too. Well, not the Harvard kids I knew. The Berkeley kids were more fun, though. I'll tell you. We're talking about 6-foot bongs. Just 6-foot water bongs. And
well, at Columbia, when we were looking for super fun, we hung out with the FIT girls.
What's that? FIT.
Fashion Institute of Technology.
Oh.
Stylish, hot, cute.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, easy. Especially in that era. Oh my God, Ted. Especially in that era. So I have my beef as well with Harvard and their woke stuff. And while I agree with the sentiment coming from the Trump administration about, hey, get rid of your woke bullshit, I'm with that. However, I'm not with defunding the university because they're not going anti-woke the way the Trump administration wants. I don't believe in strong arming these universities. I believe change comes slow, as just the same way the whole DEI woke thing came up slowly. It was a slow creep. And I believe you have to slowly creep away from the ledge. You don't just, suddenly fall back away from the edge of the cliff. And defunding them in this way, with the amount of really good research and science that comes out of Harvard, this is going to impact that greatly. Again, I don't agree with with many universities' DEI and woke, admissions policies. I don't agree with that, but I disagree with defunding them when a lot of these are research institutions that are usually at the cutting edge of how we fix health crises in America. It's the students and the young research professors that are, 29, 30 years old, that are coming up with all of these brand new ideas. And by cutting off the government funding, we are kneecapping ourselves and making ourselves actually more vulnerable to falling further behind in education and research, to say, oh, I don't know, China, which is exactly what Trump is trying to thwart. And, it's going to blow back the other way by doing this when you're cutting off, funding to a research institution like Harvard. So I think it's a bad idea. I mean, I think these are two things I hate, right? Like Harvard's DEI stuff. But I also don't think the government should tell private institutions how they should run their schools by way of Columbia.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, look, it's the bullying that's so incredibly yucky here. And, I mean, look, I've applied to jobs at universities, and it is irritating when, for example, it says like, oh, one of the questions you're asked is like, so what would you do if you taught a class to, to promote diversity and diverse voices in your class? I mean, okay, what if you're like I don't know, what if you're a physics professor? Maybe the answer is nothing because I teach physics. I mean, it's like, it's just sort of like shouldn't be a requirement. And right. It is a requirement, and it shouldn't be. But so I get the anger here. Look, here's the problem that I think has happened once again with the Trump administration, which is here are Republicans and a MAGA movement and a president who were ruthlessly subjected to censorship by the media and by and even to the point and by the Democratic Party. They get into office, and instead of taking the moral high ground, they accelerate it and do the same exact thing themselves to their enemies. So nobody stands up for free speech, right? I mean, standing up for free speech is saying, not only will you not censor me, but I will not censor you. And like, that's right. When I'm in power, the people in power have that ability. Biden censored you and I. They literally got us fired, got our station shut down, and put an end to our voices in that format. And so like I had hopes that like Elon Musk, who's a kept saying I'm a free speech absolutist. Well, where is Trump's free speech absolutism when it comes to students who want to peacefully protest Israel's actions in Gaza? Where is it when it's like, oh, we're going to yank a federal contract from a university, not because they really did anything wrong or they violated the terms of the contract, but because they teach things or they allow protests that we're not down for. I mean, it's disgusting, and they're horrible hypocrites.
And this is all
my problem. My problem with
to
Trump
the next topic
is much more.
Well.
I hate the fact that he's a hypocrite more than I hate what he's doing. Hypocrisy is the absolute worst. Do not like you get no credibility whatsoever if you're like, do what I say, not what I do. It's like, fuck you.
God. Yeah. I can get with that. And all of like the second story that we're covering is also tied to. It seems like inextricably tied at this point, Ted. The whole university stuff, then the whole, illegal migrant stuff, then the students and how they're being treated. It's all somehow become tied in this one big ball of yarn, like this fucked up ball of yarn. Like, I don't, well, we'll see. Let's see. That's the way I view it. It's like they're inextricable at this point, where we're talking about deportations, universities, students, funding, free speech. It's all just
if there is
together.
But if there is a silver lining here, it's a reminder to educational institutions that when you get into partnerships with deep-pocketed organizations like the federal government, you're no longer independent. They can tell you what to do. They can control you, which is why you should really strive to make sure that you can keep your financial house in order without becoming dependent on them. So, for Harvard, I'm sure they'll survive and thrive.
Ted, are you saying get off the government teat?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, I think if I was look, the biggest protest probably on any American college campus was May 1968 at Columbia, when the students took over the campus. And it was extremely violent, mostly because of the police violence against the students. But it was rough. And that protest, how did it start? It was mainly over the university's research contracts with the Defense Department during the Vietnam War to help develop things like napalm to be used against the Vietnamese people. So the students and the members of the community were very angry. Columbia they shouldn't be doing so much business with the federal government anyway. It's like they should just be like, all right, it's time for us to become independent. And there are certainly a lot of things they could do to do that.
There are ways, and you shared some of those ideas, which I thought was brilliant. I mean, over the weekend when we're talking about how many wealthy alumni come out of these Ivy League schools that they can very easily sustain.
Not to mention also, all they have to do
name a library after them, or a hall, or
totally Rall Hall.
Done.
There is a Rall Hall
courtyard.
There's a Rall Hall at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but named after my dad.
Oh, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, on to story number 2. This guy, who I need to point out, Ted, Nayib Bukele. I know he's young. I think he's only about 40, thereabouts, if he's even 40.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, so everyone criticizes Volodymyr Zelensky.
Are you sure he's really the president of El Salvador? I feel like that guy's a bartender in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
Well, here's the thing. That we criticize Zelensky for wearing his whatever fake, military garb all the time, right, to the White House.
His Butch t-shirt.
But here's Nayib Bukele dressed like he's going.
By the way, what's with the airplane model on the coffee table?
I was looking at that too.
Does Trump play with that, like when no one's around?
I know. It's the deportation plane.
You think?
It's the deport. It's got to be.
It's got to be. Marco Rubio should be careful. That someone could get confused and be like, "Hey, Latino, get in there."
Hey, look at this Latino. He's trying to dress up. Throw him in there. But Nayib Bukele is dressed, while it's age appropriate for someone that's young. He's like 40, right?
Mm-hmm. He should wear a suit.
He's dressed like he's going to a nightclub.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm just saying. I
like
feel
a good nightclub. Yeah.
No, like a nice nightclub where you get bottle service and stuff.
Yeah, not a dive bar.
That's what he's. No, but that's what he's dressed like. Is he's going to go out in New York City, Ted, to like a fancy nightclub where you get bottle service and you have the pretty girls bringing sparkler, drinks with sparklers sticking out of them. I feel like that's what he's dressed for.
By the way, ever notice that none of these meetings where Vance is present ever take place after dark? Just saying. All
right. Let's get into Mr. Bukele's story, and then we have a word from Mr. Bukele.
All right. Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele says that he will not send back that guy from Maryland, even though he has protected legal status, even though the Supreme Court said to send him back, even though the federal government admits he should never have been deported in the first place. So it's kind of like, yeah, we fucked up, but we don't really care. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, 29 years old, fled to the United States as a teen because he faced the threat of gangs in El Salvador. In 2019, an immigration court judge issued a court order saying that he cannot be deported in order to protect him from those gangs. However, nevertheless, the Trump administration ignored the court order and sent him off to the El Salvadorian mega prison last month, even though there were no charges whatsoever, not even traffic charges against him, nothing. They later admitted, yeah, we just made a mistake, but whatever, we don't really care. We're not going to reverse it. He's one of more than 200 migrants who've been deported after Trump invoked the obscure 1798 Alien Enemies Act that was also used to deport Japanese Americans to internment camps during World War II. The Trump administration is paying the Salvadorian government $6 million to hold them there. Bukele talked after the U.S. Supreme Court ordered the U.S. government to return Garcia to the U.S., but the U.S., playing too cute by half, says, well, we can't force El Salvador to return him. Well, there's no evidence that they've even asked, okay? So obviously they have no interest in doing this at all. It's really, really gross. I think we should also mention that the New York Times did a deep dive into those 238 Venezuelan alleged Tren de Aragua members who were deported to the same prison at the same time as this guy. And they looked into the allegations that they were gangbangers and criminals, worst of the worst. Turns out, not really. So maybe about 30 committed crimes and may have had gang affiliations, but 90% of them, nope. Upstanding, law-abiding people, working normal jobs.
No, there's Robbie. Well, I know why Robbie's shaking his head is because if they're here illegally in the first place, by virtue of being here illegally, you are a lawbreaker.
But there's no due process here. We don't even know that they were here illegally. The whole point of due process is not a privilege. Due process is how we determine whether someone did something wrong or not. So if, let's just say you get these guys, and I don't care, they're law-abiding and they did everything right, but they are here illegally and the government wants to deport them, then they should have the opportunity to present proof that they're not here illegally, and they should not be sent to El Salvador. They should be returned to Venezuela, their country of origin. Robbie.
I agree. I agree with you on the second part, but I'm telling you right now, if you're here illegally, I'm not going to shed any tears. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you on the butt on the way out.
You don't get suspicious when the government lies, though. The government said
the government lies about everything, Ted.
Okay, so you don't get suspicious when they lie about everything. I do.
Okay, well, I do too. But now here's the thing, right? So if you come across the border in a legal manner, you have a passport, you get a green card, you're able to get a checking account. You're not living in the shadows.
Well, a lot of these guys were allowed in legally under Biden.
That's because he just didn't enforce the law. There's nothing legal about it.
Well, right? No, Biden did the whole TPS thing, temporary protected status. So basically what he did, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing, was expand the definition of having papers.
Correct. And last time I checked, remind me if I'm wrong, but I think that Congress makes the law, not the president. So the president, now granted, I mean, since Obama, presidents have been making law de facto anyway.
Correct.
Fair.
So I'm sorry. No, I'm not with you on this. If you're here illegally, I have zero problem deporting you to the country from which you come from.
But that's not what's happening here. And literally,
I agree. And that's the problem.
And by the way, in that news conference, and blink and you miss it, Trump was asked, are you okay deporting U.S. citizens whom you don't like? And he said, yes.
Because Trump's a dickhead. Yes. And MAGA owns him. So see, this is the split. So you have the America First populace, from which I am a member of. And
but
then
if you're a U.S. citizen, you're part of America, the part that's supposed to come first.
I agree.
But you shouldn't be deported.
I agree with you. So and Trump is doing more damage than I think that Harris could at this point.
Well, especially on this topic. Okay,
yeah,
let's hear from Nayib Bukele.
I also want to point out
now, as far as World War III goes, Trump might be doing a little bit better, but I mean, I have no interest in living in a prison, which is what Trump is establishing.
That's correct.
Let's listen to
Ted said. One more thing also before we let Robbie go here. I want to talk about this guy, Mohsen Mahdawi, who's a Columbia University
we'll get to
student.
that. We'll get to him.
Well, really,
as
we
well
don't have
as
we don't have him on the list. We don't.
Ozturk. I mean, you can comment on that as it
But
pertains to
Mahdawi,
Ozturk
he's
as well.
Mahdawi. I'm just going to say very quickly. This is one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard of. He was contacted by ICE, and they said, "Good news! You have been approved to become a U.S. citizen. You only have one thing you have to do: come to this one final hearing, and then you're good as gold. You'll get your U.S. passport." But much like Jamal Khashoggi showing up to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, things were a little different. Goons were waiting for him, wearing masks, and they arrested him and bundled him off. And
they tricked him.
They tricked him. Although I guess he suspected that this might happen, and he asked his lawmakers in Vermont, where he's from, to help him, and his lawyers were ready to go in case this happened. So they were able to file an injunction to keep him in keep the case in Vermont, so he doesn't have to get sent off to Louisiana and maybe El Salvador.
So here's what Nayib Bukele says when the press
disgusting.
When the press asked him if he would return Abrego Garcia to the U.S. And the funny thing is, all of these high-powered men here, Trump and Bukele, act as if like, oh, they can't just like ask the other guy that's sitting there. They're like, bro, can you return that dude? Or hey, so here's what Bukele says.
I mean, they're trolling is what they're doing.
Yes, they are. So, but here's what he says. After this ad with him.
We could all use some strategic resilience. That's all I gotta say.
An ad that we're not getting paid for.
While the ads are going, I was going to say this. What's going on right now is the biggest reason why I oppose the real ID crap that Trump is trying to push through, having started being enforced here soon. It is disgusting, and
well, that's been a long time coming. Okay, so here it is.
It doesn't make it right.
Ready? There's AG Pam Bondi, AG Barbie, and AG Homeland Security, and the lady in the pink is Susie Wiles. That's the chief of staff. There's Mike Waltz, still got a job.
What? I'm surprised he's not on his phone.
He's still got a job, and next to him, that is Stephen Miller, who Ted, you and I believe he is probably the architect of all of these mass deportations.
And the living reincarnation of Hermann Goering. But anyway.
He's so yucky.
You plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I smuggle terrorists into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
You could release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
So, I thought it was strange that he kept referring to Abrego Garcia as a terrorist. I mean, it wasn't even
there's
applied.
No allegation whatsoever.
Right. Abrego Garcia apparently is not even shut up, Josh Shapiro. Apparently Abrego Garcia is not charged with anything at all.
He's not.
So
and the government admits that he should not have been deported, that it was an administrative error. So is what they claim. So, I mean, I'm not really sure, honestly.
Is his wife a citizen?
Supposedly.
Yes.
She is. She is, yeah.
She is.
Because me and my son talk about this. What happens if they deport his mom too, and then they've obviously the 3 kids. It's this is disgusting.
Oh, the mom, not
well, they can't deport the mom too. But because she's a citizen.
They also can't deny you due process and deport American citizens either, right?
But apparently they can.
So
so I don't understand really what the Trump administration is trying to accomplish here with this guy. I mean, all that's going to happen is that this is going to bounce back up now. Today, there's a hearing about him in federal court, the federal judge who is already pissed off as hell at Trump for ignoring her order, which has now been affirmed by the appellate division and by the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court kicked it back to her, down to her to enforce. That's a normal thing for them to do. She's now said, okay, do it. She's going to declare them in contempt today. No question about that. So at that point, Trump will appeal to the appellate division. The appellate division will also will confirm that Trump is in breach, and it'll bounce back up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court's going to have to issue a harsher ruling against Trump.
So here we are. Also tied to all of this that we're talking about is this Turkish PhD student.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go ahead and get going on that.
By the way, I have a question for Robbie. What's going to happen when courts have established that if you are approached by cops who are not uniformed, don't present ID, don't show you any proof they have an unmarked car, and you avail yourself of your Second Amendment rights to defend yourself from being kidnapped by unidentified goons, and you shoot them, you're probably going to walk in the long run. You'll have a hard time. But
I disagree. I think what will happen is that they bring terrorism charges against you. That's what I think is going to happen.
They can try, but the point is, I think any jury of Democrats, Republicans, Clovisites, anybody, they're all going to say, I would do the same thing.
Look what's happening
here in Montana. Here in Montana, if an ununiformed goon squad try to come and get you, I guarantee you they would get ventilated and there would be no repercussions.
Well, and that's how it should be.
I agree.
Look.
Yeah. No, it's pathetic.
They're basically accosting her on the street in hoodies, in non-cop cars. They're like, these undercover cars, dark SUVs. These are just dudes wearing, as far as I can tell, I would think I was being kidnapped.
I would too. Well, she said that. She said that she thought she was about to be taken somewhere to be killed.
Like, I would be terrified. And then, later, there's two people in the back there. Ted, go ahead and read the story on this. But there's two officers back there with their badges hanging. But the people that originally, maybe she didn't see them, I'm sure, in all the melee. But look what happens. These big guys, these big dudes wearing hoodies come up to this small little woman. Yeah, like come up to this small little woman and are like, I'm grabbing you. And they take her phone from her. Like, that's, I don't know what world
scum. They're total
I don't know what world
scum. Anyway, the Tufts University, the Tufts University student who was detained by federal immigration agents last month detailed the inhumane and unsafe conditions at the Louisiana ICE facility where she's being held. She wrote in her declaration that she's only had limited access to food. She had to wait hours for toilet paper, and that she's not getting proper treatment for her asthma. Rumeysa Öztürk, she's a doctoral student from Turkey, also accused a nurse in the facility's medical center of taking off her hijab without asking permission. The conditions in the facility are very unsanitary, unsafe, and inhumane, she said. There is a mouse in our cell. The boxes they provide for our clothing are very dirty, and they don't give us adequate hygiene supplies. In this, she said in her sworn declaration filed in U.S. District Court for Vermont. Immigration authorities arrested her in Somerville, Mass., that's outside of Boston, on March 25th. This was in retaliation for co-writing an opinion essay back in March of last year in a student newspaper, criticizing the school's response to demands that it acknowledge the Palestinian genocide and divest from companies with direct or indirect ties to Israel. According to her LinkedIn, she's in the doctoral program for child study and human development, a real threat to America.
I have a question for you, Ted, just kind of going along with this. Especially on Rumble and on X, you're seeing a lot of your right-wing populists kind of coming out against this. Kim Iverson, she's more of like in the middle, but you have your Jake Shields types and you other people who are really pushing back hard against Trump with this crap. So why is it that the pressure is coming from the right, from people who align with me, and the American left is silent? Where is your team?
Okay, well, so first of all, my team isn't as well organized as yours, but in their defense, there have been rallies in support of these people. For example, the Columbia student who was just arrested yesterday, who thought he was going to get his passport approved, there's a big rally here in New York City scheduled for today. We'll see what happens there. But there have been, certainly the left has not been silent about this at all. But, they don't get much access. We don't have, much of a blogosphere or, we don't have a left-wing media ecosystem as highly developed as the right does. I'm not saying that like we shouldn't. I'm just saying we don't. And so it's not like they don't care. We care. We care a lot. We're very pissed off about this. But it's like, but what do? We have no organization. You've read my book. It's like, this is like why we need an organization. You can't do anything without, you can like have an anti-Trump rally like once every 3 months on a sunny Saturday, but you can't really build a sustained grassroots movement without an organization.
Do you see any way at all from the populist left working with the populist right to break this thing down? Would the ideologies even allow that to happen? So, like, if you have an open borders lefty who opposes this crap that's going on with civil liberties, do you see them ever reach across the aisle to close the border, throw the bums out, a due process guy like me?
I think it's extremely unlikely because as bad as things are getting, they're not bad enough really when those alliances of convenience happen. It's like in situations like civil war, like, France under Nazi occupation, where communists fought side by side with right-wing Christian monarchists because it's like, hey, we got to get rid of the Germans before we start fighting each other. Or the anti-Soviet mujahideen, different factions, different religions, they got together. They're like, we have to get rid of the Soviets before we can get rid of each other. Things aren't that bad here yet. So I think if and when they do, yeah, it's possible, but we're not there yet.
Gotcha. And tell us a little bit about your book real quick, and then I'm going to go away. I'm going to get that thing plugged.
May 1st, it comes out. It's called Never Mind the Bullocks. Never Mind the Bullocks. Never mind. That's the Sex Pistols. Never mind the Democrats. Here's what's left. And it's basically an argument defining what left-wing politics should look like going forward. And it's arguing that what we have to start out with is not the organizing. You start with the ideas that you can build. You can then organize around the ideas because we don't have a platform yet. Nobody knows what the left would do, including the left, if they were to come into power. You have to make an argument to the American people. If you let us drive the car, here's where we'll take you. So that's what this is. This is it's not calling for revolution, although I'd like to see a revolution, but it's calling for this. Let's just say you completely took the federal budget just as it is, and you moved everything around to make it America first and make it people first. And then you would deprioritize defense spending and so on. Then, you could have free college, you could have unlimited unemployment benefits, free healthcare, et cetera. So it's here. There's all that money there. So it's a pretty detailed financial argument, really, about how, it's a big vision for the left.
Yeah, and like Ted
they
said,
certainly don't have a roadmap right now.
No. Ted was kind enough to give me a copy of the book, and I did read it, and I agreed with probably about 70% of what the man said. That's
pretty amazing.
That's saying a lot.
Well, we agree on the big things, so that's what matters. I'm gonna go away now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Robbie.
Thanks, Robbie.
And Ted, I stopped on this sign because it crossed my mind that I was like, do you think that's a Jewish person saying that? Saying Jews say free Rumesa? Or is it a Goyim telling Jews to say this?
No, I'm pretty sure it's a Jewish person. I'd have to guess.
So, but you don't know. We don't know.
Well, you don't know. No.
We don't know. I'm just saying. It could be somebody just demanding that the Jews say that. I'm just putting it out there.
That's true.
It's unclear. Yeah, unclear here. But yeah, this is a shitty situation all around to see, especially at all these universities, these well-known. I mean, she's a Tufts University doctoral student, and wow, like she sounds horrible, Ted. She's focusing on children.
Yeah, what an asshole. And what a waste of government resources too, right?
I know.
Like keeping her paying to
keep
her locked up.
She wrote an article. She wrote an article last year, but like, all right.
Yeah, meanwhile, the corpse fucker is still on the loose.
The corpse fucker?
The corpse fucker. You don't know about the corpse fucker?
Ew, no.
Oh my God. I have to read this because I can't. Oh, this happened while we had, when we were off. So I guess I'll just read this story to you because there's no other way to put it. New York Times. Police seek man who say violated a corpse on the R train.
Wait. Why was a corpse on the R train?
The police are searching for a man investigators believed violated a dead man. Oh, I think they did arrest him. Wednesday night on a train in a Manhattan subway station. The man who died got on the R train at about 8 p.m. It's unclear how or why the person died. Then at about 11 p.m., someone entered the same train car at the Whitehall Street South Ferry Station. That's in the Wall Street Financial District. Within 45 minutes, the dude saw the dead guy and began to rummage through his bodies. Then he's like, "You're cute," and began to have sex with the body. The sex acts were captured on surveillance cameras inside the train car. Soon after, the man got off the train and ran away. So he, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is. Okay,
so I was thinking that, and that guy, they went out, think about they pulled out all the stops, for,
Rumesa.
For Luigi,
And Rumesa. Oh God. Okay. This is.
No, they have not. They have not found him. Yeah, they have not found him.
Oh, disgusting.
So they don't really care about the corpse fucker. But this woman who wants to take care of kids, we got to snatch her right up off the street. I personally don't want. I mean, I guess if I'm dead, I don't really care what he does to me. But I don't.
But still, it's just gross. It's gross.
Also, it's on the subway. Okay, I'm a New Yorker.
But it's New York City.
On the subway. On the subway.
No, staying with New York City.
Everything happens in New York. No, not this. Okay.
It does. Everything does happen in New York, Ted. Speaking of being gross in New York City, here's Andrew Cuomo.
Who would be corpse fucker. All right, here we go. Two influential New York labor unions that backed Eric Adams for mayor in 2021 have now moved over to Cuomo, reflecting, of course, how he is the front runner in the race. This comes from the Hotel and Gaming Trades Council and Local 32 BJ of the Service Employees International Union, otherwise known as the SEIU. They represent building workers. The two unions have over 125,000 members, and they spend millions of dollars supporting candidates. Both unions are not that psyched about Cuomo. They worked with him to pass that $15 minimum wage statewide, but then they asked for him to resign after he was accused of butt grabbage. In a joint endorsement, the union leaders praised Cuomo and said they'd look past the butt grabbage, and they said that he was a steady supporter of working class New Yorkers in the age of Trump. Mr. Morocco, head of one of those two unions, did not address his change of heart since 4 years ago when he said that Cuomo was not fit to be governor. He did, however, acknowledge that Cuomo could be an important ally as the union seeks a new contract
governor, but
with the hotel.
maybe mayor.
Yeah,
That's
just
what he means.
Don't leave any
state.
Don't leave any butts near his hands.
Of
course,
in the city.
Cuomo's psyched. There's 2 months before the primary, and in New York, if you win the Democratic primary for mayor, you're going to be mayor. As Cuomo rolled out his latest supporters, his rivals were making fun of him. Turns out that he posted a housing plan that included sort of hallucinations from ChatGPT. The Cuomo campaign said it only used the AI for research, not for writing its plan. It blames the garbled text on voice recognition software used by a policy aide whose left arm, you can't make this up, was amputated in 2012. Rich Azzopardi, spokesperson, said rivals attacking the campaign were only trying to distract from their lack of credentials, vision, and electoral support. There were even more sloppy mistakes yesterday when the union endorsements came out. The press release misspelled the union leaders' names in boldface type, summarizing the endorsements. Always a good move.
I'm sorry, Ted, but your city is just a clusterfuck
disaster.
of disaster
It
stories.
is. It is a fucking disaster.
It's just whoever, like, who you guys
Cuomo,
have
start spelling right
choose-
and catch the corpse fucker.
like who you guys have to choose from as mayor. You know, a dude that's like flip-flopping on, like, Mayor Adams, of course, being the guy that's flip-flopping from party to party. Now he's aligned with Trump, but now he says he's independent. He did roll out trash bins, Ted, under his watch in New York City. It's a big move. I can get with that. And then he was like, we love migrants. And now he's like, stop sending the migrants. So he's kind of flip-flopping. It's like a dance move on, when he goes to the nightclub. And then you have this guy who is apparently a notorious molester of adult women that work for him. Hands up the blouses and just all kinds of New York City, ladies and gentlemen, America's city, the gateway to America. You'll be greeted by one of these faces. It's either
or by a corpse fucker,
or that guy. You're going to get this guy.
Hey, for all we know, he might be the corpse fucker. We don't know.
That's true. If he hasn't been caught, you don't know. Could be Andrew Cuomo. It could be Mayor Adams. Who knows?
Be.
I don't know. But you guys, your city is, I don't know which is worse, your city or my hometown of Los Angeles. I don't know. They're both screwed up cities. And I think a lot of people on the right are going to say, well, duh, you guys keep electing these left-wing morons to run your city. So of course your city is.
Robbie's saying we only have time for one more story. So we should probably just skip to headline numero 5.
Okay, this is the fun one.
The fun one. All right, here we go. If you're not a fan of working out or you just don't have enough time, there's good news. Doing everyday chores and activities a little more briskly could really help you live longer and have better health, a new study. This means you should tweak how you clean your house, climb the stairs, or run to the bus. I agree with all this, by the way. The study published this month in the magazine Circulation, researchers analyzed the daily movements of 20,000 people over the course of about a week. Nobody had real exercise, but some moved with more zip than others, taking the stairs instead of the escalator, for example, or speed vacuuming their living rooms. Like the amounts of these everyday exertions were small, often less than 5 minutes a day. But the impacts are huge. People who move around fast are half as likely to have a heart attack or stroke in the following years as people who sort of, amble along. The study says that it's a good idea to find ways to fit exertion into your daily life. That, according to Emmanuel Stamatakis, professor at University of Sydney, but that doesn't mean you have to actually exercise. To conduct the study, Stamatakis and his colleagues used algorithmic machine learning to closely analyze movement patterns in 10-second increments and to determine whether someone was using lightly, moderately, or vigorously. They used biobank tracker records from 21,139 adults who never exercised, then cross-checked against hospital and death data. They found that light everyday activities, which might include strolls to get lunch or hit the copy machine, slightly reduced risks for cardiovascular problems and deaths during the next 8 years, compared to people who recorded almost zero activity, meaning that they remained seated for almost the entire day. But people needed more than 2 hours a day of light activity to see much benefit. Moderate everyday activity is far more potent. If you spend 24 minutes a day moving around at a moderate pace, you probably will have a 50% less chance of dying of cardiovascular issues. The most effective dose of vigorous everyday movement is even lower. 5 minutes a day of pacing around or rushing to places while huffing and puffing is associated with 40% less likelihood of dying from heart problems. So
pacing around, how do you define just pacing around?
Like when you're on the phone, for example, like I do that. I walk back and forth. So, if you ever, one of the things I noticed about France, like let's say you go to a store and you ask for something that's in the back, the person, usually a woman, will like trot back to get it. It's not like they're going to just, like a U.S. postal worker, like waddle back to get it. They're going to and just those little bursts of energy, you can see that, the French, they eat a lot, they live well, they drink wine, a lot of it. But they're smoke. They're not as thin as they used to be, but compared to Americans, but they're still, thinner than we are. And I think just there's a lot to be said for just like having vigorous, quick motions in your everyday life.
I do this. I get a lot of arm exercise doing this, wax on, wax off.
Yeah. Yard work.
And my house is tall.
Get up. Yeah. I was
I'm up and down the stairs.
I lived in a rich neighborhood. I was the only person who cut my own grass, but I liked it,
Yeah, I view this as exercise, and I know this
is exercise.
It is. And now there's scientific studies to prove it. And I know this sounds silly, but like years ago when I first became a wife and mother, I
also
realized
no lethargic sex.
that does get it's cardio.
Yeah.
But see, like she's a mom right here. She's doing all the mom stuff, while she's at home. So I realized, because I have a lot of steps in my house, even from at the front yard, right? Like I got to come up the steps to get to the front door. I realized like carrying gallons of milk and water and stuff. I'm like carrying weights. So I started.
Of course you are.
I would carry the gallons and I would do bicep curls with them as I'm walking up the stairs. So I'm carrying extra weight, and I would find everything I could to kind of like eke in a little bit of exercise. And I thought I was being just silly and being like a dumb, I'm finding exercise. But now there's a sign. Hi, Clovis. Now I see that there's a real actual study.
Also, picking up your heavy cat is exercise.
That is true. Pick them up and down, up and down.
Yeah, exercise. It's like.
So look, this is exercise. This is kind of like the only exercise I get. Look at this woman. It's kind of the only exercise I get these days. That too. Well, I don't have clothes.
Well, do you have
a
dog that you can?
No, he's
or a small rhino.
I have a 60-pound kid that I gotta chase and grab and pick up, and so I have a lot of good arm strength. But I don't know how you get cardio in other than going up and down the stairs a lot, I guess. But now there's scientific proof. And I already know Rick in the chat room there. I know that a lot of the men that are going to watch this, Ted, are going to be like, yeah, see, woman, you're getting exercise. Go do some housework. That's, I guess the moral of the story is the men.
Although there's also been this
you guys can help us.
There's other studies have shown, there was this whole argument that women who withhold sex from their husbands, it's because they're resentful that their husbands don't do more housework. But studies have debunked that actually couples that have more traditional gender roles tend to have more sex. So where it's like,
Interesting. Well, this is, I like to say that my husband doesn't help. Again, we've kind of dished out the chores, being that I do inside housework and he does all the outside housework, because I don't want to be out there cleaning gutters. I don't want to mow the lawn. I don't want to do that's his guy stuff. I do the inside house stuff, and this is kind of how I get my exercise nowadays. It's not there for me right now in life. But here we are. There's proof now. So that's the fun takeaway story for your Tuesday.
Actually, it's useful. Just pick up the pace. You're doing the work anyway. Just do it a little faster, and then it'll be done sooner too.
Yeah, but how do you vacuum faster, Ted? Or how do you wash the dishes faster?
Are you kidding? You can vacuum faster. What do you mean?
But if you go too fast, it doesn't pick.
Well, that's true. There's a certain trade-off there.
Because if you go too fast, you're just skimming over the rugs and nothing gets picked up. So you'll have to go over it. I guess maybe you can go over it 5 times, but very quickly. And I do that, and you get a lot of tricep workout. But now there's scientific.
My vacuum cleaner is heavy as a brick, so just carrying it around
can be your vigorous exercise. But I guess there's this there's the takeaway. Do more housework. If you say you can't get in exercise, do more house chores.
Catch your cat and trim his claws. Look at that claw. Look at that. Oh yeah. Don't
trim it too short. He's
no. Can they bleed?
Hey, I'm back.
Hey.
Oh, just because I clicked the wrong thing. But okay, whatever. We're saying goodbye. Because
bye everyone. Bye bye.
I guess. I guess you could get some cardio by running away from ICE agents. Just saying.
That's true.
Too.
No, that's one thing I want to see people doing. Like, I want to
Run
see
away?
them running away from them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
They're
You
not
don't have
shoot
to.
you?
You don't
They're not
have
police.
to stop. They're not cops.
Oh.
And they don't
Oh,
identify
okay.
themselves anyway, so it doesn't matter. You can run.
Oh.
You should run. If you see someone, if you're a migrant and you're
Trying to apprehend
a little
you?
worried and you see like sort of sketchy white dudes on the street, like book, haul ass. You know,
Well, one of
make,
the
make
things-
them work for their lunch.
Well, one of the things that me and my wife were talking about, because where I am, it's a big old, it's a tourist town during the summer. People come up to go to Glacier National Park.
Oh.
Well, my wife was one of only 4 Black people in the entire county. That's not a joke. And so we're wondering is how many of these people are going to be coming in thinking that she is a illegal migrant, and if someone's going to
Ooh,
call
that could
ICE on
happen.
us, 100% could happen.
Yeah.
And so she said, "Well, what would you do?" I said, "I'd shoot the bastards."
And I think that's fair.
I do too.
Let me put it this way. If someone tries to attack me or someone I love, and I don't know who the fuck they are, I mean, look, there have been many cases where the police, they break into someone's home. They're not announced. They're not wearing uniforms. It's a raid, and they've been shot. And ultimately the shooter gets off the hook.
Yep.
It's like, well, you should have knocked. You should have presented ID. It's for the police's own like protection.
Yeah.
And by the way, what a bunch of pussies that they're afraid to show their faces because they're afraid of being doxxed because they know they're scum and everyone hates them. That's why. I mean, if you're a member of ICE, just like commit suicide. No one loves you.
Ted.
Die. Yeah.
That is not true. That for some people, it's the job that you took, and that's
it's just like the SS was a job that they took.
I was about to say. I mean, I don't really see what the difference is. The Stasi was just a job.
That's right.
So I mean, let's call a spade a spade. I'm a right winger. I want a small government. Put the army on the border. Close the border.
Oh my God.
Deport the migrants who are here using due process. If I have a day in court, fine. Show me where you apply for your passport. Can't do it. Put you on a bus, send you to Mexico. Enjoy the trip.
But I will say, I just want to say that we've skirted this issue, Robbie. If you came in here legally, you followed the rules under Biden, and then they changed the rules after you're here. Sorry,
rules and laws are different.
Rules
and laws are different.
That's not fair. Like if they let you in under a certain set of rules, you're in.
Right.
It's like if you're admitted to college, if they let you into Harvard, and then they say, "Oh, we checked again, and now we decided we don't really think your grade point average in high school was high enough. We're kicking you out." That's not cool.
Right. When they admitted you, they're like, "Okay, 3.8 with whatever this criteria is. You met it. You're at
Biden
school."
violated the law,
and then they're like, "Now we need a 4.12."
Biden was the law at the time. Everybody who followed the rule. By the way, I'd like to point out that the people who didn't follow the rules, the getaways, the people who snuck in across the Rio Grande, they're in better shape now.
They're here.
They're not leaving. It's the ones who followed the rule and they have that app on their phone that now tracks them and makes it. They're the idiots. The people who did what the people who did what they were supposed to do are the fools.
I completely agree, but my point still stands. Deport every last man, woman, and child of them. Goodbye. Go back to the country from which you came from. Make your own country better. You have agency. You can make your home better.
Okay,
you don't have to come here and drive down wages.
Also, it's not your home if you came here when you were 4.
Yeah, there's that too.
Well,
I mean, trust me.
Another
like
conversation.
My ex-wife came here when she was 4 from Taiwan. She's not Taiwanese. Okay, she's American.
I would have sympathy with that, Ted, 100%. If the government had not reneged on every single compromise that was made. Reagan promised after his amnesty to close the border.
That's true.
Bush promised amnesty. He promised to close the border after his amnesty. It never freaking happens.
No,
sorry.
Well, but then we engaged in dirty wars.
I do not care.
In that era.
I do not care. Deport every last damned one of them. Close the borders. Either you're a country or you're not.
We engaged in dirty wars in the 80s and early 90s.
Correct.
That fucked up all of those Latin American countries, and now we're seeing the repercussions.
And more to the point, the real truth is we don't make enough kids.
If you'd outlaw abortion,
another conversation, another day.
I'm going with this. Ted just opened the door. I'm walking through.
No, I gotta go. I literally have to go.
Listen, if you stop killing our
I'm gonna
kids and then
remove
sterilizing our teenagers, we would have kids. Okay, that's the last word. Goodbye, Manila.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're all over the place today, but that's why you tune in, because you never know what the hell we're going to say here
True.
on what topic and where it goes. Even Ted and I don't know where it's going to go, and
No.
we're
Oh,
hosting it.
even especially.
We really don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That's it for us. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Thank you. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. We'll be back mañana to
Yeah, we
use
will be.
use the new native
kind of curious
language
what's
of the
going to
United
happen with this court ruling. We'll see what happens. Although I think she's going to slam the government.
Yeah, we'll see.
She
Adios,
should.
amigos.
Bye.
We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.